Hi, it's Courtney McCullough here from Ageless Writer Studios, and I want to talk about The Fall of the House of Usher. It's the new Mike Flanagan miniseries. Okay, full confession, full disclosure. I've only seen Hill House before this, but I'm going to watch Bly Manor and Midnight Mass and The Midnight Club. I think there's another one I can't remember. My brain's not very good these days. My brain is not good these days. Not at all. Not at all. But, watch The Fall of the House of Usher. I loved it. Like, it blew my little mind. It blew my mind. And which I've always loved Edgar Allan Poe's works. It's something that I don't have them memorized. But I really liked reading them. Or the ones that I could get my hands on, that I liked reading them. So that I got to watch it. So before I get too deep into it, because this is probably going to be like a all encompassing thing, because I'm going to talk about the characters, I'm going to talk about plots, I'm going to talk about talking about stuff and things. But I love it. So full disclosure, spoilers. Beyond this point, if you see me doing this right here, this is the end of the spoiler-free zone. Okay? Spoilers. Many spoilers. All the spoilers. I'll also put in the description thing that this is not a spoiler-free thing. There are spoilers. There are spoilers. So first of all, if you're familiar with Edgar Allan Poe works, or at least the majority of them, or some of them, you're going to find lots of lots of fun little things hidden in the series, little Easter eggs. You're going to find just little things that make you go, ooh, haha, little Easter eggs, little fun things to find. Every episode, except for the first one, is taken from a short story or a poem from Edgar Allan Poe's works. But the first episode is from from one of the lines of the Raven. Nevermore, nevermore. If you hear that, that is one of my cats wanting in here, but he doesn't need to be in here while I'm trying to record. Gets into problems. Bob. He's a baby, I know. And I love him, I do. But trying to record with a cat, very hard work. Very hard. I try to do it on Instagram all the time, and not all the time, but more often than not. Anyway. So, and Mike Flanagan has a thing where he picks out certain people that he always seems to pick out to work on his things, because he has his buddies that he likes. One of them is his wife. Now, in Hill House, she played the matriarch of the Crane family. In this one, she plays a character named Verna. I love Verna. I love her, and I'll get to that later. Mark Hamill's in this. I know that's a big name. Make people go like, yay, yeah. Mark Hamill, most people know him like from being like Skywalker, blah blah blah. He was the Joker for me. He was the Joker from the Batman series that I grew up watching. He's also in a lot of Scooby-Doo movies. like, as various characters. Like, in my favorite one, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, he is the crotchety old fisherman who's always like, "You tourists, get out of my soul." Like, this don't belong to you. Get out of here, darn tourists. He plays Arthur Pym here. If that name rings a bell, it should, and I'll get to that. But also, I did not know this. And it was like, for me. Nobody else is probably going to be as excited about this as I am, but, Carl Lumbly was in this. Carl Lumbly, he's one of my favorite actors, or voice, well, I love him as a voice actor. Why? And it's kind of a childish, like, connection, I guess. I grew up watching, like, the Justice League the animated series. And he was the Martian Manhunter's voice. And the Martian Manhunter is, like, my favorite DC Comics guy. I wish I had more comics with him. I have a whole collection. I have, like, a good many. I don't have some of the newer stuff, though. I'm not sure how I would feel about that, because they tried to make him like a corrupt cop on Mars kind of storyline thing, and my Jean would never. But then again, there is a whole multiverse in the DC universe, so I guess an alternate dimension Jean could be, but not my boy. Not my golden boy. You understand? But I love the Martian Manhunter. And he was actually on, Carl Lumbly actually got to be on Supergirl. It's like a cameo thing with Phil Lamar, who used to do the voice of the Jon Stewart Green Lantern in Justice League the Animated Series. The two of them and David Harewood played, like, the little Jones family on Supergirl. Jean, Malefac, and, Myron. I'm just like, mwah. Carl Lumbly plays Augustin Dupin, or Augie. That's usually what they call him, and I just want to hug him. I love him so much. So that was like a big. Also, now this might be me, and you're all probably gonna call me an idiot, and I am. But Bruce Greenwood, or like maybe that's his name. He plays the main character, Roderick Usher. I think. Don't hold me to that. I mean, I know I could look it up. I have a phone right here. I could look it up. But I feel like that takes from this, But the guy that plays Roderick Usher, which I'm pretty sure is Bruce Greenwood. I don't know if it's mannerisms. I don't know if it's the way he's talking in this, but he made me think it was the same guy that plays the newspaper guy from Spider-Man, the one that's like, Spider-Man is a menace, I say. J. Jonah Jameson, or is it James Jonah Jameson? That guy. I thought it was him because of the way he. Anyway. Not the same guy. So each character, or each of the main characters, takes their name from a different Edgar Allan Poe story. And Mike Flanagan brings a lot of Edgar's stories or story plot points to life in the show, but in a more modern version, because this is a more modern time, though it does take place kind of in 3 different places. The main story is Roderick talking with Augustine, or Augie, going, "Well, you've been trying to catch me all these years. Time for my confession. You probably won't believe me when I tell you my confession. You're gonna call me crazy. But this is my confession." As you do. So there's that plot point, and then the other part is between 1979 and the early parts of 1980, where Roderick and his sister Madeline start coming into power. And then the 2 to 3 weeks leading up to the confrontation between Roderick and Augie. So, main characters. Let's start with Roderick Usher. He is the twin brother to Madeline. He has 6 children accounted for. Which, the way the story goes, it is implied these are his only 6 children. There is Frederick, but everybody calls him Roderick, and you'll understand why. Tamerlane, Victorine, Napoleon, and then Camille, and then Prospero. 4 out of the 6 kids are bastards. And I mean that term like the term that it was, like, the proper term for it. Roderick Usher has a tendency to, he likes to sleep around. I'm just gonna put it out there. In his youth, he was a slut in his youth. So, 4 children, and then Tamerlane and Freddie. And the big plot point that the reason he claims them is because he and his sister Madeline. And this is like a big plot point. But it's something that you can kind of infer, and it is eventually, like, flat out said. Their mother was a mistress to a big shot. And the big shot pretended they didn't exist because it would ruin his happy little life that he had. So Roderick was always like, if I am the father of these children, they will never want for anything. I will never turn my back upon my children. And there we go. So Roderick and his sister Madeline, twin sister, I'm going to kind of talk about them separately at times, but I'm also going to talk about them as like a unit because they are very enmeshed. Not in an incesty kind of way. So get your minds out of that. We're not incest, but they are close. And the reason they're so close is because they've always had to rely on each other. Their mom grew up dirt poor with their mother. And their mother was a religious fanatic. So she thought that them being in poverty and them struggling was a good sign. Good things to come. And she also kind of had this secret hope that one day her lover would want them. No, it doesn't work that way. So they struggled, and so it was just really the two of them looking after each other because their mom worked long hours to try to bring it in. And then when she got sick and she died, that left just the two of them. They were all they had, so they're a little enmeshed, but not in an incesty kind of way, but in a they kind of share one brain cell kind of way, and it's usually on Madeline. Because Roderick does not think things through. He does not think things through. He sees the problem, he charges it head on because he thinks, deal with it immediately. Madeline's more calculated. She likes to play the long game. She she likes to know what all she's dealing with before she makes her decision, because she likes to have all her cards and she plays them close to her chest. The only one she's really open with is Roderick. And she only really is open with him because she typically uses him as a pawn too, because as long as they're on board together, she can use him to do what she can't, because especially when they were younger, you know, 70s, 80s, even in the early 90s, women kind of had to have, like, it was designed so women weren't taken seriously. So she used Roderick as a puppet to get what she wanted, because Roderick was usually on board with her because her plans typically benefited the both of them. And as long as it benefited the both of them, he was more than willing to do whatever she wanted and be her mouthpiece, essentially. Her stand-in. Meanwhile, she would gather all this information and stuff for them to use because she was so unassuming, because for some reason, when you're a woman, people assume you don't know shit. Madeline's a calculating bitch, though. And I love her. She is one of my favorite characters. Like, don't get me wrong. You're gonna find out that everybody in the Usher family is horrible. Well, almost everyone in the Usher family is horrible. Like, terrible, awful people. But they're relatable. They represent who every single one of us could be if we gave in to our biggest impulses. Or the worst parts of ourselves. I can kind of, and they all eat, in each of the Ushers typically tends to represent a deadly sin, which I'll get into that. But for the record, the twins, because they are one unit, they are greed. Because they are driven. Or it seems to me like they are mostly driven throughout the whole series, as they never want to be poor anymore. They never want to have to struggle. So their whole goal, from the time that they were able to realize what kind of situation they were in, was to never be poor like that again. They didn't care who they had to step on. They didn't care who they had to kill. And yes, they did kill. And they didn't care who they had to lie to, drug, maim, blackmail, whatever. They didn't care about that. As long as they never had to live in that tiny little shack house in a dead-end street again. Now, they were traumatized early on because, one, living in poverty does things to kids. It does things to people. It gives them a heightened sense of, it puts you in a fight or flight, because you don't know where your next meal is really going to come from, because money or food costs money. Don't know if the lights are going to work. In fact, you can see the kids, in some of the flashbacks from when they were, younger, doing homework by candlelight. Even though it's, the 70s. Or not the 70s, it was the 40s. But still, electricity was a thing, they just didn't always have it. And then, when they were teenagers, their mom passes away. But she doesn't pass, but that night traumatizes them. Because when they find her dead, well, they knew she was going to die. And they tried to convince her to go to the doctor, but she didn't believe in medicine. They hated this. They traveled to their father's house. And now, here's the juxtaposition. They live in this ramshackle house. It's breaking down, breaking apart. This is already, breaking apart, breaking down. Sometimes they don't have electricity. Sometimes they don't have food. They're wearing hand-me-down clothes or stuff that their mother, Eliza, has sewn together. Which Eliza is taken from, I think, Edgar Allan Poe's mom's real name. I can't remember. But, they're not they're basically one step away from being homeless. Or unhoused. And both of them hate their father. They hate the way he treats their mother. They hate the way that he ignores them. They hate the life he lives. Their father is William Longfellow, who owns this big pharmaceutical company called Fortunato. Yeah. Edgar Allan Poe Easter egg there, Fortunato. But he owns Fortunato. And he lives in this big house, this big mansion, in a gated community, with his fancy cars, and his butler, and his wife, his proper wife. And they hate him for it, because he never acknowledges them. He's horrible to their mother. He's the worst of the worst. So they come to him, and it kills them inside to come to him, and they beg him to talk their mother into going to the doctor, because she's going to die if they don't. And he essentially laughs in their face. And she dies. Or, well, it seems like she dies, and they don't know what to do. And Madeline's like, well, we can't really call the cops or anything, because that will mean she goes to a corner, that means she'll be embalmed, and then we'll be haunted for the rest of our lives, because she specifically said she didn't want no kind of chemicals in her body. So the twins make a decision. They make her, and this is the other thing about the twins. They're not afraid to get down and dirty. They are not. They make her a coffin, and they build her, or they make her grave, and they put her in it. Well, that night, Mama Dearest has come back to life, or it seems like she's come back to life, which is very traumatizing for the kids, because they're like, we didn't know, we thought you were dead, we checked for a pulse, you weren't breathing, you weren't responding, and she's covered in mud, because she's dug herself out, she's crazed. And then she just stops, because she stops, her assault on her kids. And she starts out the door. And the kids are following her, because they're like, oh no. Their mother goes to their father's house, makes him come outside, and then kills him. And they both die together. Of course, the official story, to make everything really nice and uncomplicated for the Fortunato company, because nobody wanted a scandal, was that he had a heart attack in his sleep and died. And then Roderick ends up meeting, and then they end up going to a foster home at some point. And during this stay at the foster home, when it's an abusive place, the people involved are only interested in the check, and they are horrible to the kids. And Roderick is incensed. He immediately goes forth, he charges in, he's always the one getting punished. Madeline, on the other hand, makes herself indispensably a helper to her foster family, to the point that they see her as this wonderful whatever, and then she uses that to turn them into the police. And what nobody realizes, she also has snuck a few dollars, skimmed a little at the top herself, but set it up on that. I love Madeline. She's a schemer. Now Madeline is more into technology and computers. She's the brains. Roderick is the face. And Roderick, he, thanks to Madeline, does help find something that, pushes him and makes him the rich guy. Uh, so Roderick, he ends up falling, like, when he gets older, he ends up falling in love with Annabelle Lee. And then has their two kids. They have their two kids, Freddie and Tammy. And they're living in this little crappy apartment. Madeline comes by often. She's quit her job. She was working at, like, a tech company. And she's a genius. Point blank. She's a genius. She's come up with this new type of microchip before it's even really a big thing. She's already talking about how big computers are going to get, blah, blah, blah. But her ideas keep getting taken by her male colleagues. She keeps getting talked down to by her male colleagues, and she's tired of it. So she's planning on making her own business, because she's like, fuck them. You know, she's like, fuck them. Which, you know, I can't blame her. I can't blame her. She's a girl boss. Okay. Well, Roderick has a job working at Fortunato. And he wants to rise up because he and Madeline both see Fortunato as their birthright. Because their father did technically own the company, create the company. They are his children. Even if it isn't legal, essentially, or like, there's no paperwork to prove it. They know. So, Madeline starts scheming. Which Roderick's already kind of making himself indispensable a little bit. Because he has found this guy, this chemist dude from another company, that has made this little pill that's supposed to be better than Tylenol. Called Ligadone. And he pitches it to Rufus Griswold, who is the leader of, or the current CEO of Fortunato. That name is, if you recognize that name, that is the name of Edgar Allan Poe's real life arch nemesis. Or not really arch nemesis, but a rival. See, Mike Flanagan just sticks it. So he proposes this Ligadone. Or proposes this, and Griswold not only takes his idea out from under him and pitches it to the rest of the board as his idea, but Rufus then sets up Roderick to be the fall guy, or the patsy, if things go south, because Fortunato forges signatures. They do clinical trials on people who typically have dementia or other intellectual disability or intellectual dissonance going on, or basically people who really have no way to consent to such trials or do not have family present to get, sign up. They forge signatures and essentially put these people through trials, and they're older, or they're not, or they're disabled, and so they can't really say what's going on, and they're like the perfect test subjects. And then when these people start dying, and like they literally grave rob these poor people because the federal government is investigating and they don't want the bodies tested. And Roderick's name is on all of it. So he and Madeline start scheming again. They make it look like they were working with the feds. Like, they make the feds think they're going to work with them. The feds being Augie. This is how Augie comes in. And how Roderick makes a lifelong enemy in Augie. So, he makes Augie think that he's going to help. And they've set this up. And then at the last second, he turns on the government. He sides with Fortunato. But it's Madeline's scheme. Keep this in mind. Madeline's the mastermind. And of course, the people at Fortunato, the big wigs at Fortunato, are so impressed. Even Griswold, and Griswold's talking about making him like the VP and stuff like that. But of course, that's not enough for Roderick and Madeline. They've already had their idea, especially since they found out that Fortunato is making a new campus or a new office building, and this is the perfect opportunity for them. Madeline has Roderick leave to go to the bathroom. This is New Year's Eve, 1979. And Madeline starts talking up Rufus, and he's, of course, thinking that she is into him. Spoiler alert, Madeline thinks he's a pig. She wants to kill him. And, well, so Madeline offers him this wonderful wine, or sherry, Amontillado. If that rings a bell, it should, because that's another reference from Edgar Allan Poe. And it's one that many of us probably had to read in high school. The Cask of Amontillado. Madeline leads Rufus down to the basement area. It's basically soundproof because it's where construction was going on. Keep in mind, because this is New Year's Eve, nobody's due to be back for a while after the party. Madeline leads him downstairs with promises of sex and whatever his little heart desires. And he starts feeling dizzy. Feels a little drunk. And he passes out. And when he wakes up, he is chained. And Madeline and Roderick are walling him in. Brick by brick by brick. And he's screaming, he's begging, he's pleading. And Madeline's like, no. See, it's because of you that Fortunato was in trouble. It's because of you that Fortunato is having all these problems. It's because of you that Fortunato isn't going to think twice about you running off to the Caribbean or to some other extraditionless country. And they are not going to think twice about hiring the man who beat the feds, Roderick here. And Roderick's like, what can I say? Madeline's a genius. You should have paid attention to her more. So they seal him up. And then Madeline and Roderick go out to be seen. Not just at the company party, but at a smaller location, which is where they meet Verna. And thus sets everything else in motion. Now, what gets set in motion is essentially a deal. A deal with the devil sort of thing. Faustian deal. Except Verna's not really the devil either. I mean, she could be seen as that, but she could also just be seen as death in general. Either way, she's an entity. And you pick up on that pretty quick. But, Verna is intrigued with the siblings. She can see their desires for grandeur. And their drive to be better. Or at least for themselves. So she gives them, would you rather be famous? Or would you rather be rich? Point blank, they both say rich. Because fame can fade, but as long as you have money, you can be comfortable. And see, that's what they've always strived for, right? They are greed incarnate, essentially. This is what they want. Well, then she talks about, well, what if I told you that you could do whatever you want with no repercussions, no legal issues. People will try, of course, but they'll never find anything that'll stick. And you can be as comfortable as you want. But when the time comes, everyone from the Usher bloodline will die. Ending with the two of you. And it's like ending with the two of us, and it's like, yes, you will be forced to watch everyone in your bloodline die first. And then the two of you will die together. And, they're thinking she's out of her mind, she's crazy. Madeline does not immediately take the deal. Madeline wants all the cards on the table. She wants to calculate it. But Roderick immediately goes, deal. Because again, Roderick doesn't think things through. Well, when Roderick agrees, Madeline agrees. So for the rest of their lives, which they end up, Madeline never kind of forgets. She thinks about it as a bad dream or whatever, and she puts it off as they were really high and drunk that night, trying to forget what they did to Rufus. But she never really forgot it. So she spends her entire life working on on immortality through technology. AI. Doesn't really work. Spoiler. Because she never really gets to finish it. Spoiler. But, it's her life's work. It's what she does. She kind of becomes obsessed with this whole immortality thing. She's also obsessed with never owing a man anything and never letting a man be able to control her. That's another big part of her, which I love. Roderick, he can't keep things in his pants. See, Madeline never has children. Madeline, shortly after this encounter, ends up being one of the first people to get on birth control, IUDs, whatever. She doesn't want children. Because it's always in the back of her mind that she'll be forced to watch her children die if she had them. Also, she's never really had much of a desire for children. She loves her nieces and nephews in her own way, but she doesn't want any of them. No. Roderick, however, like I said, he's a male slut. Oh. And he always likes to think of it as it never would have happened. He didn't think it was ever gonna come. I mean, he thought it was a fever dream. But at the same time, he was kind of willing to just let it play out because once the ball's rolling, you can't stop it. That's his. Excuse me. So that's their whole thing. And so the rest of their lives at Fortunato. Roderick rises. He becomes a CEO. Madeline's COO. Ligadone becomes the next big thing, but it also becomes the big opioid. Because of Roderick and Madeline's Ligadone, about millions and millions of people either die from overdose or become addicted, which is bad. Of course, they don't see it that way because Ligadone's not addictive. That's what our scientists say. Their scientists are paid to say that, though. Their scientists are full of shit. Because their scientists are probably not real scientists. But I digress. Annabelle Lee, actually, you find out she ends up divorcing Roderick because he becomes something she doesn't recognize. His love of money over his actual love of humanity kind of overshines, and she's like, I don't want no part of this. Well, she takes the kids with her for a while, but when he flashes money at them and says, who do you want to live with, mommy or your mom? They're, of course, going to choose their father. Because he can give them the life they want. And that ends up killing Annabelle because she can't live without her children. And her ghost actually is one of the ones that confronts Roderick, and she's like, when people ask me how you managed to take my children from me, All I have to do is say, he's rich. He's rich. He promised them a life I couldn't with his money, and his lawyers beat mine. And she goes, and now you've killed my babies. And that's a major spoiler, but is it really? Poor Roderick. Well, I say poor Roderick, he's not poor. Anyway, Annabelle Lee was his only, major love. He does end up remarrying a much younger woman named Juno. But he doesn't marry her because he necessarily loves her. He marries her because she is a Ligadone success story. She's on the highest dose of Ligadone anyone's ever recorded. And she seems perfectly normal. No, she's not. But, it makes him look good. Right? And it's always about the optics. And so, of course, and then he has this empire now. Fortunato. He runs, the main business, but his sister is she's working on her AI projects, but she's COO. And each of his kids have their own little thing that they do. Some of them for the company, some of them outside the company. But it all comes back to Fortunato. I don't think that's for me. All this comes back for Fortunato. And the grand scheme of things. So, Roderick does end up having to see, he doesn't see it firsthand. Well, one of them he does see firsthand. He sees his children die. He has to go to their funerals. He has to bury his children before he before him. And even though it said he had a stunted heart, or the House of Usher is full of stunted hearts. That's, greed made him, he was never really the most loving father after he became rich. After he started doing everything to stay rich. After money started really blinding him. Oh, sure, he indulged his children in whatever little whims they wanted. But he was also very hard on them. They had a name to uphold. They had to uphold the Usher name. They had to be just as brilliant and ruthless. And they had to come up with bigger and better schemes because it all links back to the family name, the House of Usher. But he didn't nurture the proper bits, the compassion, humanity, humility, charity. None of the stuff that matters. So all of his children seem to have kind of a miserable existence. I mean, it's comfortable. And they seem happy enough. But Verna quickly points out to each and every one of the children, and to Roderick and Madeline, they didn't really live their life. Oh, sure. They lived it comfortably. They lived richly. Or at least monetarily wise. But they didn't really have anything that made life worthwhile. Their legacy was really going to die with them because their legacy... What legacy? Pain, suffering, because that's all Ligadone is. That's what most of the Usher family does. Their stuff, the stuff they made. I mean, it even comes out Roderick didn't even really make Ligadone. Like I said, he found the chemist. That's the most he did. But he pandered it off as if he made it. That was the thing. He did it. The only one making anything in that family who actually made anything was Madeline, and even it didn't work. They are takers, they are not makers. And they capitalize on what they make. On what they take. as if they made it. Everyone else be damned. So, Roderick's seeing all of his children die. He keeps seeing Verna. She's taunting him. He even thinks, like, he tries to save his remaining children at one point, and his granddaughter, because he has a granddaughter named Lenore. And she is essentially Annabelle. Soft-hearted, kind, and she actually sees her family for what they're doing, and she's like, fuck, no. Like, she tries to stop it, which I'll get into that later. She is the best of the Ushers, besides Annabelle, since Annabelle's already dead. Lenore is the best of the Ushers. But because of Roderick's deal, even Lenore must go. But Lenore has a legacy, but we'll get into that. But Verna, she taunts Roderick because he tries to kill himself, essentially, to try to save what's left of the kids. With Madeline's encouragement. But it doesn't take, because Verna shows up and she's like, oh, and he, like, makes him expel everything. And she's like, did you really think that I was going to let you break the deal? Did you think you were going to get out of our contract that simply, or that easily? And he, like, kind of looks at her and he's like, there's no stopping you, is there? And she's like, no. You knew the terms. You made the deal. And, like she does these little flashes. And he's having flashes, too, which it could be one of two things, because you find out that Roderick is also been diagnosed with CADASIL, which is a form of dementia that can cause, like, hallucinations and stuff. So that's kind of what he throws everything off on it at first, is he's hallucinating the bodies of the corpses of his children and of Rufus and Annabelle. Like, he thinks that's what he's doing. He thinks that's what he's hallucinating. But with Verna popping up, makes you wonder, is she just tormenting him further? And he, like, talks to the children, too, the corpses. He's like, I'm sorry, like, and the children are just like, and he's like, I know you don't believe me, I know you don't believe me, I know you don't believe me. It's sad. Which Roderick eventually, the time comes, he and Madeline are the only ones left. And Madeline's just kind of, she's not defeated. Or she doesn't think she's defeated. She meets up with, her and Roderick meet up at their family home. The old home. Because Roderick apparently bought that whole blockhouse so he could watch it, like, deteriorate. Because he hated it so much. It was like a reminder of where he came from. So he and Madeline meet up. And they're talking, like, about the past. And, of course, Madeline, they're also talking about, like, Ligadone and the things they've done over the years. And Madeline's always, like, she immediately throws off the blame. She's like, everybody wants to blame us because we're rich and we're powerful. But the truth is, we didn't tell them to take the Ligadone. We didn't tell them to abuse it. We didn't tell them to get addicted to it. We didn't tell them, to become junkies. We didn't tell them, to abuse it. And if they didn't like it so much, we wouldn't make it because it wouldn't be profitable. Really, it's the consumer's fault. Like, she tried to, and it's like, oh. Which Madeline is determined she's going to go out with a bang. She's like, if this has to go down, then I'm going to make Verna look me in the eyes when she does it. Because I am Madeline freaking Usher. And of course Roderick's just like, yeah, that's my sister. But he's being unusually quiet, and then she passes out. He drugged her. Or he thought it was like he tried to kill her, but he knew he couldn't. So he drugged her. So, like I said, they are both kind of obsessed with immortality in their own way. He's trying to make his legacy through, like, the kids. He wants to do that kind of immortality, living through the children. Whereas Madeline wanted to do the AI thing. But because of they were also, like, really into Egyptian mythology. And not just mythology, but, like, Egyptian artifacts. So Madeline often had them shipped to her. Probably stolen. Actually, definitely stolen, because Roderick goes on a tangent to Augustine. Or not really Augustine. I can't remember who I think it was the dead children. His dead children. He went off on the tangent. But it was like, you don't ask about how priceless. No, it was the kids, because he was telling them about what his plans for their Aunt Madeline. And he wanted their ideas, because he was going to gift her these sapphires. This is important. He goes, now children, the way this goes, it's not about, what's the price for the sapphires, because they are priceless. It is how much you can pay off the Egyptian authorities, the museum authorities, the shipyards, the cargo holders, how much you have to pay off the American government, and that is the price you pay. And these sapphires were apparently from a myth. It may not be a myth, it may be something that actually happened. I'm not well versed. Where this woman, or where the Egyptian queen Tuset, had sapphires put into her eyes to help her see forever or something. Anyway, when he and Madeline are talking, and he knows, deep down in his heart, he has to know he didn't kill her, because they're supposed to die together. But he wants to treat her like a queen. Immortalize her like a queen. So, he did the thing that people do for mummification. Take out the brain and stuff, and he put in the sapphire eyes, replaced her eyes with the sapphires. Like, I'm pretty sure he cut out her tongue because she wasn't saying much. But, yeah, he did that to his sister. And of course, just as Verna said, they died together because Madeline eventually gets out of the basement. Because during this whole conversation with Augie, Madeline is stumbling around in the basement, trying to find out, trying to piece herself together, trying to figure out where Roderick is. She's mad. Which I would be too. Not gonna lie. I'd be pretty mad too. Excuse me. So Augustine, this whole time, like, every once in a while he makes comments. He's like, "What is that in the basement?" And he's like, "Oh, that's just Madeline tinkering. You know, her AI, her immortality tech. It's fine. You know, perfectly fine." And eventually, when he gets to the part about talking about Madeline, Augustine's like, "What did you do to Madeline?" He goes, "Oh, I immortalized her because she's a queen, and nobody else is gonna do it for her." And he's like, "Roderick, was Madeline dead?" And then they hear the scream, and Roderick goes, "Come to think of it, I don't think she was." our mother did that. Thought she was dead, and then psh, up like she upright. Wasn't for long, but she was upright. And Augustine's like, what did you do? Like, his face half the series is looking at Roderick like, you crazy white man. What the fuck is wrong with you? And honestly, Roderick does kind of look insane. He even calls it out, like, he breaks the fourth wall a few times about it. But anyway, Madeline makes her way up the stairs, and you see her, and she's ghastly looking. She knows her brother's voice. And with what strength she's got, she chokes him out. Like, they fight. Augustine runs. He sees this going down. He goes, not me. Not me. Not me. He zooms out. There's a thunderstorm going on, and the whole house collapses. Which, if you know the fall of the House of Usher, that's kind of what happens to the actual, yeah. And of course, poor Augie, he goes to the gravesite, and he kind of tells off Roderick, like, I'm getting the last laugh. I don't know what to do about the recording, because there's no one else really to prosecute, because every one of you is dead. Also, your confession alludes to a lot of supernatural stuff, which, while I believe it, because I witnessed what I witnessed, the government doesn't exactly buy that story. Also, I'm richer than you because I actually have love in my life, and you do not, so. And he recites an Edgar Allan Poe poem. Or it seems like he does. I can't remember. I can't remember the words. Anyway, he ends up leaving. That's Roderick's story. Oh, during the whole conversation with Augie, his phone keeps going off. Roderick's phone keeps going off, and Augie's like, do you want to get that? Do you want to get that? Oh, no. It's just Lenore. It's just Lenore. And then you find out later on, in like the last episode or two, that Lenore's already dead, and it's like, who the hell is texting Roderick? And then you find out that that someone had apparently activated Lenore's AI to message Roderick, but it only types one word, nevermore, in various ways, like the actual word, and then like text speak version, and then yeah. And during the whole thing, though, Roderick gets haunted the entire time he's talking to Augie. Like, the children, the reason he's able to tell the story of what happened with his kids and everything is because the children literally show up, and it's implied that they are sharing their experiences with him so that he can tell Augie, because they want someone to know. Verna wanted someone to know, because she flat out told Roderick he needed to summon Augie to this, because he's part of it too, which thankfully Augie didn't die in all this, because but throughout all of this, the kids are haunting Roderick, and they are telling him, what to say, how to say it. Roderick complies, because he's not going to go up against the ghosts. But sometimes they make him do things, or he, freaks out in a way that makes Augie go, are you okay? Hello? And Roderick's like, oh, no, it's fine. And then, by the time they get to talking about what happened to Frederick, Roderick goes, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm being haunted by the children, and right now, I seem normal. But in a little bit, Frederick's going to come in here because I'm not getting the ball rolling on the story, and he wants me to get the ball rolling on the story so I can talk about what happened to him. So he's going to jump scare me, make me seem like I'm out of my mind. But he's going to want me to tell the story. I'm going to look like I'm out of my mind, and I'm going to feel like I'm out of my mind. And then he's going to go away, and I'm going to be able to tell you what's going on, and you're going to, yeah. And then, of course, when he first gets started talking about this whole thing, and he talks about the fact that he kind of made a deal with the devil, Augustine's like, this is really going to be your excuse? You made a deal with an entity? And Roderick's like, you don't understand. You don't understand. Okay. So, greed. Now, each of the kids are killed in youngest to oldest, which, except for Lenore. But Verna saved her for last on purpose. Well, as one of the last. Verna, also known as the Raven, is the embodiment of death or the devil, however you want to look at it. And she appears in everything. Just glimpses. Actually, I'm not going to start there because I didn't really get to Madeline. Madeline, during this whole situation while Roderick's losing his mind over the last few weeks, Madeline's losing hers too, but she's more aware of the supernatural elements at play. She's more aware of Verna because she's had Arthur, their fixer dude, looking into it. He's found pictures or evidence of her near each and every one of the kids, like before they died. And they can't find her on any records. And at first, Arthur's like, is she one of Roderick's like bastards? But she's like psycho. She didn't get the inheritance she thought she deserved, so she's like making herself the only one. Which, Madeline plays along with it at first because she don't really remember. But she goes to try to find the bar that her and Roderick met Verna at all them years ago. It's disappeared, but the symbol of the Raven is there. And she does eventually end up finding Verna, or having a confrontation with Verna. Verna's like, I will offer you clarity for free, but we can't renegotiate your deal. And she tells her about The City and the Sea, which is an Edgar Allan Poe poem. Basically, about the devil, there is a city an empire being built, and all it takes is one fell swoop kind of thing. Madeline doesn't really get it at first. Verna's like, you will. And Madeline's like, are you sure we can renegotiate? She goes, I mean, you made that deal mostly with Roderick. I don't have... And she's like, I don't renegotiate. Get used to the idea. So, Madeline doubles down on her project that she's working on with the AI, and she also tries to save the remaining children by convincing Roderick to kill himself, and that doesn't work. She also gets voted into the company because everyone's concerned about Roderick because he's acting, throughout this whole ordeal, he's spiraling. And so Madeline's like, I hate to do this to him, but he's got that codicil. His brain is suspect. He's suspect. Time to vote him out. I'll take over. She didn't take over. Now, start with the youngest. So, there is Prospero. Does that name ring a bell? Excuse me. Maybe the character Prince Prospero from the Mask of the Red Death, or the Red Desk. The Red Mask of Death. Or the Red... It's an Edgar Allan Poe short story about a prince and his nobles who during a big party, or who decide to throw a big party after sheltering in place together while this horrible death plague is going through their country, they decided to have a party, but they're like separated from everybody, and they think they're safe. And then this one person shows up that nobody knows, which is really weird because everything's sealed. Turns out, death has shown up and proven that you can't escape. Now, Prospero, he is the youngest child of Roderick. I said his name so many times, you would think. He's the youngest Usher child. He's also the bastard of Roderick and some blackjack dealer on a yacht, apparently. I don't know, we don't ever really see his mom except at the funeral, and even then, it's just a shot of her. We don't really see her. Now, his thing is, he has been trying to pitch an idea to his Aunt Madeline and his dad, because each of the Usher children gets like this humongous business loan thing if they can pitch a thing, like some kind of business model or whatever that makes the Usher family look good. Lust is the name of the game with Prospero, or Percy. They call him, not Percy, they call him Perry. Lust is the name of the game with Perry. He's a hedonist. Drugs, sex, money, all of it. He even has orgies often. We don't really see much of that, thankfully. I say thankfully, some people are okay with that, but there are ways that sometimes it becomes really excessive in some of these shows. But Mike Flanagan's really good at keeping it like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's meaningful. That's the best I can come up with. Like, there's reasons. So, but we see, he's into that lifestyle. He's poly. He is poly. He has 2 partners. He's into, like I said, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He is close to his older brother Napoleon, who is also one of the bastards. And yes, that's what they call themselves. Well, they don't really call themselves that. It's what the other two, the 2 legitimate children call them. It is what it is. Perry is trying to pitch this idea for like a nightclub, like a specialty nightclub, exclusive, blah blah blah. And Madeline and Roderick shut it down. They're like, no. There's already a bunch of nightclubs. There's nothing really profitable about it. Blah blah blah, and that pisses off Perry. Because he already thinks the whole family looks down on him because he's the youngest. And he's a bastard. And, he feels very out of place, but he's also really enjoys being entitled. Well, he has to shadow Freddie. Because, all the kids have to do some work with the company at some point, at least learn about it. So, Harry puts on what suit he has, and he goes and he shadows Freddie. And Freddie's knee-deep in discussions with Arthur, their lawyer, and without, like, it looks like a whole army of EPA, like, lawyers. And they're talking about, like, EPA violations, things that are buildings that that Fortunato company should have shut down years ago. What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Freddie's doing what he's told, which is, we are trying to comply with EPA with EPA violations, I promise we are doing everything we can. And, which is what Arthur tells him to say. Meanwhile, Perry's like, oh, we own this? That's cool. I didn't know what it is. Oh, wait. What kind of, ooh, that don't sound good. Acid and stuff? Like, that don't sound that good. And it's like, they immediately pull Perry out of the room and they're like, shut up. Shut up. You're going to give them something they can use. Do not do it. Keep your mouth shut. Perry keeps his mouth shut, but he remembers these buildings because it gives him an idea. He's going to start doing pop-up debauchery clubs using his family's business venues that have been closed, because who's gonna know? Who's gonna know? But he wants to get one over on Freddy too, because Freddy really embarrassed him and made him feel like little. So while he's in the process of setting up the club, he picks this one place that's set for demolition, or it's supposed to be slated for demolition. Really, Freddy should have gotten rid of it a long time ago. Roderick reads him the riot act about it later on. But it's still there. And Perry and his partners go and they scope it out. And they're like, they come up with a way of getting an app that can get people in, make it all exclusive. You have to have the dough. Really exclusive, really elite. Shh, hush, hush. Can't have people coming. You know. They run into some problems. Perry goes to his brother Napoleon for drugs and a drug plug, because he's like, we're throwing this massive party, and Napoleon's like, I told you no about this. And he's like, he's saying no now, but when he sees how profitable my business can become just from these pop-ups, he'll want to invest, and I'll be set. And Napoleon's like, fine, I'll give you some numbers, I'll give you some names, but this all comes blowing now. I had nothing to do with this kind of thing. And he's like, of course, Leo, of course, you know. So he's getting all this set up. And he was like, wait, the orgy don't start until the rain falls, because they got like this indoor sprinkler system. They want to make it like really cool rain thing. And everybody's like, well, the main water is not hooked up, and you don't want to hook up to the city because that will make people know we're using this, and we don't want people to know we're using this because they'll alert your dad. And it's like, well, I saw these water towers up top. We can tap into those. They tap into it. They never tested it, but they tapped into it. Well, like I said, he wants to get one over on Freddy, so he goes to Freddy's house and invites Freddy's wife to the orgy party, because that's essentially what it is. And she's like, acts all insulted, but she takes the burner phone. It happens. The night of the party happens. People are partying. They're dressed down in their lingerie and stuff. They got these masks on because it's like a masquerade who's who affair. Morella, which is Freddy's wife, shows up. And of course Perry sees her and he's all like, hey, we'll talk later. And she's like, uh-huh. Because his whole thing is he wants to seduce her so he can get one over on Freddy. Here's why. Perry goes to this secret hidden room in the building with his partners, he has cameras set up in all the rooms. And he goes, what Dad didn't realize was this is the real business. We take video of who's who. See that? That's a prominent businessman's daughter, da-da-da-da. That's a congressman, blah, blah, blah. Pointing them out. He goes, and do you have any idea what they would give to make sure their wives and the media don't see these images? Yeah. Blackmail. Perry's in for it. Well, the party's going on. He's just dancing around, and he notices a woman wearing red outfit and red lingerie kind of thing and a skull mask, which he thinks is weird because he doesn't remember inviting her, and he knows everybody he invited. So he follows her to the secret room, and she's all, it's Verna. That he don't know it's Verna because he don't know who Verna is. And she's like, oh, you're such a pretty little thing. I kind of hate how this is going to go. And she kind of, in a roundabout way, pretty much tells him he can call this off. He can call this whole thing off. It doesn't have to go this way. It has to go, but it doesn't have to go this way. And he's all, like, confused about her because she's like, what in the hell, man? We're having a party. And he's, like, all being sexual with her or making, is it overtures or advances? It's advances to her, and she just kind of pats him on the face, like, "Oh, you poor boy." And she does try in a roundabout way to talk him out of this party. She's not going to like save his life. He is going to die. That is a thing, but he doesn't have to die the way he's going to if he continues down this path. But he continues to choose it. She disappears. He goes back to... He uses on Marilla. And then it starts. It's time for the rain to fall so the orgy can start. There's a reason the EPA wanted to shut down this particular building. There is a reason Roderick wanted this building gone. The water tanks, or the water towers above, held corrosive, acidic materials that they were going to try to dispose of immediately after getting rid of the building. But they were going to do it quietly so that the EPA people and the government wouldn't find out. Perry should have tested the waters. He should have listened to Verna, but he didn't. Said he and hundreds of other people who were at that party were melted. Had their skin melted off in this horrific acid rain situation. Except for Marilla. Now, Verna tried to get Marilla to leave. Like, she showed up to her in a whisper and was like, oh, honey, you should really get out of here. And Marilla kind of thought about it, and she almost did. She almost left because she saw other people leaving. Like, the hired help started leaving, which she attributed to, like, a smoke break or something. Because, you don't want to stop the sprinklers too early. She should have listened. But she didn't. And Prospero, in his last moments, Verna comes and talks to him. And she's like, I told you it didn't have to end this way. But you were so determined. Letting yourself be led by the wrong head. Letting yourself dive into these desires. And, like, the whole time, like, when she first meets him in the bedroom, she kind of points out that he wants all this attention. He wants to prove himself, but he wants all this attention, all this affection. Because, like, basically she reads him. She reads him for filth. But in a way that is also kind of sexy because Perry's like, oh, never heard it put that way before. You know. Anyway, she kisses him as he dies and puts her mask on him. And she goes, now if you'll excuse me, I have business with the others. And she leaves. Now Arthur's one of the first ones on the scene with the police, because Arthur is really good at what he does for the Usher family. He's really good at like getting in there with the police or before the police, taking away evidence, whatever. He takes the hidden cameras. He takes the burner phone. Excuse me. And he's the one who notices that Marilla's still alive. He gets Marilla help. And she ends up taken to the hospital, and that sets Freddie kind of off because why was his wife at an orgy that his little brother was at? She said she was going to hang out with her friends. What else is she lying about? And that kind of starts him spiraling. But that's for another day. The tale of Perry ends with his lust getting the better of him. He should have listened to Verna, because Verna flat out was like, you don't have to die this way. Your death does not have to be this horrible. But he didn't listen, and so she also alludes to the life they could have lived if Roderick hadn't made the deal with her. Like, she alludes to it. And she's like, oh, Perry, you are a consequence, you know, like she talks about consequences and how one person's decision can like have a domino effect on other people, because you never know who you and your decisions will affect down the line. And Prospero's like, this whole night is about no consequences. And she's like, honey, you are a consequence. One man and one woman made a decision to sleep together, and you are the consequence of that. And he's like, and he kind of gets all like, what? And it's like, oh, Perry, honey. Oh, Perry. Anyway, his death, everyone's like, or the Usher family spins it as it was not his party. He was just at the party. They blame it on one of the drug people, one of the drug pushers there, or the drug dealers there, I think. And it's called Monty, I think. Manchester. Anyway. So they spin, you know, the whole thing of it was not his party. He was just at this party. Wrong place, wrong time. So was Marilla. Wrong place, wrong time. Blah, blah, blah. Poor Perry. Like, they tried to paint Perry in a different light to make him look better, because the whole family's already on trial. The whole family's already on trial for all of their violations, fraud, and the opioid addiction crisis, things like that. So they're already on trial. So they're using this as a way to garner sympathy. Yes, that's how they see this as a tragedy, yes. But they are not, they're a family, but they're not family. You know what I'm saying? They only see each other through blood, as related through blood. They have no real connection, though. No human connection to each other. They have no feelings toward each other other than everybody's out to get at each other because of their dad's fortune. Because Roderick from the beginning has always pitted them against each other as a way to strengthen the wall that holds the House of Usher together, or some bullshit. Basically, if they're even though they're infighting, he wanted them to be able to, like, new ideas come out from infighting, because he gets to see which of his kids has got these teeth, has the teeth to do what needs to be done to run the company, but also everybody has a reason to stick together, because if one goes down, they're all gonna go down. Because they're messy. They are messy. Which is why Arthur exists. Arthur cleans up the mess. But, so they're already on trial, so they're trying to spin Perry's death not only as a wrong place, wrong time being at the party, but like that he was this big time philanthropist in his past time, but he kept it quiet. He didn't want people to know that he was such a softie at heart. It's a good spin. Really good spin. And this is when Roderick kind of comes a glue on Freddy too, because he's like, I told you to get rid of that building months ago. Well, I was going to, Dad. But, you see, there are paperwork things we have to fill out, and I told you just to get the Jersey Boys to blow it down and be done. Dad, if you had done this, your son would be, your brother would be here, and your wife wouldn't be, but yeah. It was not a good time. And that's kind of starts the family to spiral. Meanwhile, Madeline kind of has Arthur look into it, and he sees on the camera feed Verna, and the way the help, the bodyguard people start leaving, and he's like, she must have planned this. And that's when they start to have this idea of her being like a psycho bastard or something. It is what it is. There it goes for Sparrow. Second is Camille. She comes from one of the Augustine Dupin short stories. Now August is one of the first detective characters, or like I say one of the first. He was Edgar Allan Poe's detective character, but he wasn't really a detective either. He was just a really smart dude who happened to be at places with crimes, and he was like, I can figure this out. And he did. Now, Camille's a little more complicated because she is in everybody's business. Camille is the spin doctor of the family. Her business is knowing everybody else's business. She's got files on everyone in the family, everyone who ever interacts with the family, on Arthur, on Madeline, on her own father, on Juno, who she hates because Juno is her stepmother, but she hates the idea of her being the stepmother because she's the junkie, She really hates her sister Victorine too, which we find out why, and it's because they're two sides, same coin kind of thing. Camille is vicious. Camille is ruthless. She has two assistants, Toby and Beth. They are full service assistants. Yeah. Which they don't seem to mind it at first, but they do end up leaving her because they have fallen in love with each other, and they're like, And then they leave because she fires them, which will come back to bite the family later, but it is what it is. So Camille is like the spin doctor. She's the one who touches base with every magazine, every newspaper, every newsletter, every blog, every social media standpoint, all the news channels, and she seems to know everything about everyone. Well, because of this whole trial thing, her dad has been like wanting information on all the other children to see if maybe one of the children are talking. And Camille's like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna bet Victorine has something going on. Camille is pride. She doesn't like to ask for help. She doesn't like to talk about things. But she is close to Napoleon. Her and Napoleon are also close. So she goes to him first because he's apparently supposed to be the spokesperson for Perry's death. Because he and Perry were the closest. Like, he was the closest to Perry. And she talks like, oh my, she finds him like, hi. She's like, oh my goodness, I need you to talk to GQ and menswear and da 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 da, and you're eating edibles? You're getting high? And he's like, do you want some? She's like, well, fuck yeah, I want some, but we have to do this game plan. He goes, you want some? And then, like, they have this back and forth. They talk about their family. And she's like, we have Freddie, the erotic wannabe. We have Little Miss Perfect, Tammy. We have Victorine, who thinks she's oh so brilliant. There's you and your amazing games, and Perry, he's gone. She goes, and there's me. She goes, the spin doctor. She goes, Dad knows that I spin, and I spin, and I spin, and I spin, and I spin. She goes, I'm probably spinning right now. Poor Camille. And then she ends up getting dumped, essentially. So she decides on her own to investigate Victorine. Victorine is a scientist, sort of, who is trying to do research on a new heart device. It's like a mesh to, like, read your heart, all your vascular system stuff. And she's using chimps for the experiments. Which is one, she lied, or she had a lot of, her dad influence a lot of people, because you're not supposed to use chimps for experimentation, like, except for like really special cases. And so she had her dad make it seem like this was a really special case. Victorine has essentially been tormenting these poor things. So Camille is going to get evidence that because of Victorine messing with the chimps, she's not getting what she thinks she deserves, and she's like, basically she's trying to get more dirt on her sister that she can use leverage against Victorine for their father's, like, attention or whatever. Well, she shows up late at night, you know, under the cover of darkness. And there's a security guard who's like, you really don't want to go in there. Do you know who I am? I am Camille L'Esperana. I think that's how it's pronounced. Her story fits pretty well coming up. And the security guard, who, if you have guessed, is Verna, is like, I know who you are. I'm just saying, you really don't want to go in there. Let me in, or I'm going to have your job. Okay. She goes, but you really should not go in there. She, like, tries to talk about chimpanzees, as, like, an animal species, like, how dangerous they can be when cornered and things like that. And Camille's like, just open the door. I can handle some monkeys. Okay. Don't say I didn't warn you. Well, Camille goes in and she's taking flash photography photos of these already traumatized animals. She does not realize that one of the cages is undone. So she's taking photos of these poor things. And, of course, Verna's there. And she's like, talking about, so why do you hate Victorine so much? Excuse me, what are you? She goes, why do you hate Victorine? Why do you feel the constant need to one-up her? Look, you're not paid. And then, again, Verna reads her, plays her like a fiddle. Verna talks about how Camille really hates Victorine because they are literally the same person, except Victorine is really good at pretending to be this sweet, demure woman, whereas Camille is not afraid to show that she's ruthless. She's immediately like, yes, I am. Yes, I am. Whereas Victorine at least tries to pretend and play as this good, sweet person. You know, trustworthy, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Camille will flat out be like, anything you say can and will be used against you later. Anything you post can't and will be used against you later. Anything you breathe will be used, can and will be used against you later. Like, but the thing is, Victorine is very much similar. It's just, Victorine hides it. Camille don't. But Victorine gets more positive attention than Camille does. And Camille, like, is willing to call out, like, again, the whole ushers don't make, they take. Because Victorine poses as, like, the heart mesh was her idea, her thing, when it was really her girlfriend's. So it's a whole thing. So Verna is reading Camille back her life, essentially. And then she starts making these noises. And Camille's like, what the? And she goes, you know what? I got mine. And she takes a picture. And when she takes a picture of Verna, the camera goes from... the picture shows that it's not Verna. It's a monkey. Or, not a monkey. It's a chimpanzee. There's a difference between apes and monkeys. Tail? No tail. But before the switch, when Verna starts acting weird, she starts talking about the things that Victorine does to her. Cuts her open, pumps her full of adrenaline to keep her going, swaps out the others when they're dead. No regard for their lives. And she looks at Camille and she's like, she's not here, but you'll do. And Camille's like, well, I got mine. So she takes a picture and then it turns from Verna to the chimp. And then, of course, the chimp attacks and kills Camille, which is like how she dies in the Augustine short story, except instead of a chimpanzee, it was an orangutan. Camille gets found the next day by Victorine's team, which of course sets off the rest of the family again, because oh no, like, we just lost Perry, now all of a sudden we've lost Camille too. Which, of course, and more spiral conspiracy theories come up because Arthur pulls the security footage and finds Verna's image. It's like, nobody's heard of her before. Nobody's seen her before. The dude who was supposed to work there got a call saying his services were no longer required. And it's like, oh, that's not good. So Camille, mauled by a chimp. And of course everybody's like, Victorine, why was she at your place? What did she want on you? What did she have on you? Are you the one who turned the chimp on her? And Victorine's like, I don't know. Why are you all begrudging me? Blah, blah, trying to turn it back around. Everyone, like I said, this family's messy. And they have no problems with blaming each other. They have no problems with going for the other's jugular, hitting their weak spots, calling each other out. And eventually, with the kids yang at each other, Roderick's just like, y'all, I don't care who hates who wants who dead. we need to close ranks because the government and the people are still watching us. So then they elect Leo to be the new Napoleon. Leo to be the new spokesperson, and Napoleon's like, are you fucking kidding me? I lost 2 siblings that I am close to, and you want me? And he basically says, the family, and he leaves. And I was like, oh, he'll be back. He just needs to learn off scene. Which, of course, the rest of the family's like, goes back into their storylines that they're doing. I will get to it. Because it all wraps up, makes sense. So Leo is gluttony. Now Leo seems to have, he is a game designer, except he doesn't really design games. He gives money to other people to design games, but then puts his name on it. He is big into drugs. He is big into alcohol. I would say he's big into sex, but he tries to hide that part because he's supposedly in a committed relationship with a guy named Julius. So much so that he and Julius are living together with their cat Pluto. That should ring a bell for some people. So Julius is a party hardy. Or Julius, not Julius. Julius is, he tries. He's not part of this. He doesn't want to be part of this. Leo is the party hardy. The party dude. Fall to excess. And he's getting even more and more into excess here lately because he's lost 2 siblings. He and Pluto already don't get along. The cat. He thinks she's kind of finicky and touchy, and he just doesn't want to deal with her. And she can pick up on that, so she doesn't really like him either. They tend to stay away from each other. The night Camille dies, the night Camille dies, Leo parties hard. And when he wakes up, he is covered in blood. And what looks to be Pluto is dead by him. He immediately panics. He starts trying to clean it up, blah, blah, blah. He makes it look like because of the party that they had, she snuck out. Makes Julius worry. It is what it is. But Leo is constantly worried about the cat because Julius loves that cat. So in his panic, he decides to get another black cat that looks just like Pluto. So he goes to this animal shelter. He's been to like 50 animal shelters. He's like, look, I will give you a whole new wing. I'll do whatever you want. Sign whatever paper. Give you a lot of money. I am an usher. Give me the cat. And Verna is the animal shelter attendant. And she's like, you don't want this cat. Yes, it does look like the one you are looking for. But you don't want this one. He's like, give me the cat. He goes, I will give... He's throwing money at her, you know. And she's like, I'm telling you, you don't want that cat. He's not taking no for an answer. She goes, okay. But just remember, I told you, you didn't want that cat. Well, he takes the cat. And the first thing it does when it gets loose is it bites and scratches him. And then it runs and hides. So he's like, oh, whatever. He's trying to deal with the fact that Camille's gone. He's trying to deal with the fact that he's spiraling more and more. He's having hallucinations of Pluto's death. And of course, he laughs because Freddy shows up, but there's like a little moment of reprieve where Freddy shows up. And Freddy's like, can I have some cocaine? Like, just blood. And Napoleon's like, what? He's like, can I have some cocaine? He's like, look, with everything going on, with Perry being dead, and Marilla apparently having been there at this orgy, like, that's such a disgusting word. And my poor daughter Lenore, and blah, 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 blah. I need something to take the edge off. So, drugs. Cocaine? Yeah? That's what I'm looking for, right? And Napoleon's like, yeah, come on. So he brings out his stash. He's like, I give you the Monty stuff, which is like the Montressor, like, of course not a Montressor. But he's like, but I don't think you could handle that because you're not used to this sort of thing. So we're gonna do something a little different. So he gives him like just plain cocaine, plain and simple. He's like, this is the plain cocaine, nothing special, nothing serious. And he tells him how to use it. He's like, oh, and Freddy, don't be an idiot. Freddy's like, I'm not an idiot, it's fine. Well, throughout the day, Napoleon is harassed by Pluto, essentially. Not just Pluto that he killed, who is haunting him in his dreams and his like hallucinations or whatever, but he's also being haunted by the one he brought home. And it's leaving dead things everywhere. And it makes him like panic and spiral, and he's just like, oh my gosh, this cat. He eventually calls Verna to come help him get the cat. Because he's like, this cat's, I don't know. And she's like, I tried to tell you didn't want the cat. He goes, yeah, well, I decided I don't want it now. Help me catch it. Well, during the entire time that they are hunting Pluto in the apartment, she talks about cats being apex hunters, always primed for the kill, that sort of thing, and then she relays it to Leo. And how he's so wound up, and he's so ready to charge in at everything that he's not really seeing what's in front of him. Which is funny because Julius is the name of Julius. Which is funny because Napoleon is the character of this guy from basically his whole thing is he is from the Edgar Allan Poe story is he can't see anything, but he doesn't want to wear glasses because he thinks they're stupid. So he ends up almost marrying an ugly woman, or a woman that he thinks is ugly because she looked pretty from far away. It's supposed to be a comedy, not like a horror thing. But, you know, it's a reference to that. Well, he starts attacking the cat. Like, it does come at him. He attacks it. But Verna's the one who has markings like the cat does. And she's like, do you understand yet? Oh, he starts wigging out. Or, like, he starts having, like, he's not having a good time. Well, Julius comes home from work to see the apartment in shambles, seeing Napoleon, Leo, running around the apartment with this hammer, screaming, I'm gonna get the cat. And he's like, baby, calm down. He goes, I'm gonna find the cat. And he bursts down this wall and he goes, do you see it? Do you see it? And it's like, we see Verna and the cat in the wall. But Julius is like, babe, there's no one there, honey. Are you okay? And Napoleon's like, it's right there. And he looks and he goes, it's not there. And then he looks and he sees Pluto on the balcony. Do you see where this is going? He's like, I'm gonna get you. He charges forward. The cat puffs away in smoke. And Julius, I keep wanting to say it's Julius and it's Leo, or Napoleon, falls to his death. The family is called. 3 dead in like 4 days. Everybody's on edge. And of course, Arthur has seen the image of the animal shelter attendant that, or from the video cameras entering the apartment to Verna, which he shares with Madeline. And Madeline keeps trying to go to Roderick, and Roderick's just like, pshk, pshk, you know. Then we have like the interlude of the funerals for Perry, Camille, and Leo. And during the funeral, Roderick does see Verna. And he sees Rufus, which kind of makes him panic. And he's like, oh no. But then he also sees the mothers of the other children, of his children. And they're just looking at him like, you. And he's over here like, it's a lot. Of course, it doesn't end there. It never just ends there. Perry, Camille, Leo, gone. And of course, these are all seemingly accidents. But Madeline and Arthur are, convinced it's Arthur's convinced it could be one of Roderick's other illegitimate children killing off the others. Madeline suspects that it is from the woman at the bar that night. And Roderick is just like, he's spiraling because he's hallucinating his dead children, or he thinks he's hallucinating his dead children. We're not really sure if he's hallucinating or not, because he does have codicil, but he's also being haunted by supernatural forces, so it's up in the air. And everything around the House of Usher is spiraling, because each and every one of the rest of the children are kind of wound up tight now. And we're going to settle with Victory. She's the last of the bastards and the eldest. She's a scientist, but she's not the one who came up with the heart mesh. But she's spinning it like she is. But it really belongs to her girlfriend, who is a brilliant surgeon, Dr. Ali Ruiz. I'm not good at pronunciation. I'm trying. Also, my voice is trying to cut out, but I really want to get through this, even though I know this is going to be like a 3-hour thing, because, oh my gosh, there's so much in here. But I'm in love with this story, okay? If you want to hear me ramble, I can ramble. This is like I have to ramble to someone, okay? Because if I don't, I will explode. Or I feel like I will. So anyway, her girlfriend, Allie, is this surgeon, right? So this whole time they are doing experimentations on the chips, but Allie is trying to do things the correct way. She doesn't want to hurt the chimps any more than necessary. She wants to just test her heart mesh, because this heart mesh, if done correctly, will enter the vascular system, and it can help people detect how close they are to having strokes, like with an app. Like, test your clotting, how your heart's beating. Basically the new wave pacemaker, but better. because it goes in more depth. And she wants this to work, but she doesn't want to do it the way Victorine's doing it, because Victorine has been put on a deadline by her father because he thinks this will help him with his CADASIL diagnosis. But he hasn't told people that he has CADASIL, so he is like keeping her in the dark, but putting pressure on her for human trials immediately, even though nothing good is coming from the animal testing. Because Victorine is skewing the results by swapping the chimps when they die and not telling anybody. And because she's doing some unethical stuff behind Allie's back. Or Al's back, however you want to call her. Well, Allie finds out what Victorine's been up to. Because Victorine isn't as sly as she thinks she is. Wanting to talk to her girlfriend one day about speeding up maybe to the human trials, she runs into this poor woman who has this irregular heartbeat and this she's like the perfect candidate. And she will sign anything for this treatment as long as Dr. Ruiz is part of it. And of course, Victorine can't say no. If you guess, this is Verna again. But Verna does kind of play with Victorine like, now you're sure Dr. Ruiz knows what's going on? You're sure about this? You're sure? Oh, yeah. This is all perfectly fine. Perfect. Okay. Well, Allie finds out that Victorine has essentially signed her up for a surgery and blah blah and things behind her back, forged her signatures on things. Call back. And Victorine's like, you don't understand. And she's like, I understand that I want out. And she's like, you didn't want out when it was the Usher money funding all of this. And she's like, yeah, well, I want out now. And Victorine, in a flash of rage, kills Allie. But she doesn't remember doing it. So, for the rest of the next day, she's like trying to call Allie, trying to talk to Allie, unsure of why she can't get a hold of her girlfriend. She's like, look, I know we had a fight, but can we talk this through? And then eventually he's like, just name your price. Just name your price. Just name your price. Meanwhile, she's also trying to convince the woman that Verna's pretending to be like, okay with this going forward. But she's distracted because she keeps hearing the distinct sound of the heart mesh. I can't do it. But she keeps hearing it, and it's like driving her crazy. Like, she's tore apart her office a couple of times looking into it. And she's feeling the pressure from Madeline and her father about the heart mash. And it's a little too much. And then here comes Verna talking to her about, scheduling the surgery and stuff. And she starts talking to Victorine as Verna about, you're doing this because you're trying to prove something. You always felt like you had to prove that you were just as good as the legitimate children. And, you're scraping at this. And she's like basically going, you don't have to go through. You don't have to keep going with this. And eventually, Victorine's like, excuse me? And Verna's like, oh, honey, are you okay? Acting like like gaslighting. Which Verna's over here, or Victorine's really good at pretending she's okay. She goes home, where she can't rest because she keeps hearing it. So she has the thing going, like her music blaring, essentially. And Roderick shows up because he's like, he feels like he needs to try to connect more with his kids, especially since there's only 3 left. And he's talking to Victorine about how the reason he pitted his kids against each other was because he thought it was the safest way to get them used to the way people were going to push and pull on them because they were ushers. And he wanted them to be able to not only face the world but each other, so nobody would be like able to control them, blah blah blah. And he starts trying to open up about the Catastol stuff, but he notices that she's distracted, and he also doesn't like that the music is blaring. Well, she turns it off, and she's like, do you hear this? Because everybody I've asked so far today has not. And he's quiet for a minute, and he goes, yeah, I hear that. That is a weird sound. Where is that coming from? She goes, I don't know, but I need to find out. So she starts looking around, and she starts thinking about it, and then she goes, oh, wait. And then something, it hits her, that she hit Allie over the head, and that Allie didn't make it. But she thought if she could make a point, and, well, her and her dad find Allie dead, cut open with the heart mesh, making her heart pump, and it's gruesome. Oh, but does it make a point? And Victorine's like, I get it now. I get this now. And her dad, Roderick's like, honey, calm down. And she ends up taking her own life in front of Roderick. So Roderick makes a decision to snatch the heart mesh and bolt, and then he tells Arthur to, like, fix it. So the news comes on that Victorine had a breakdown from pressure from not only her siblings dying, but also because she was working on this project or whatever, but they never allude to what kind of project. And so she killed her partner and then herself. But of course, Arthur and Madeline see the patient files, because Arthur, when he fixes things, he makes sure there's no real evidence. So he takes the files from Victorine's home, and at the top of the pile is Verna, under the name Pamela. And the address she gives is the old home where Madeline and Roderick grew up. Which is how what really made it sink in for Madeline that this is that bitch. This is the one from the bar. This is the one that we made that deal with. It's all real. Oh my goodness. While Roderick is spiraling even further because he just saw his own daughter, like, kill herself in front of him and saw the corpse of her girlfriend. And it's starting to hit him. Things are not going his way. Things are not looking good for the House of Usher. And he's having an even worse time because Juno is starting to think for herself instead of listening to the family or listen to Roderick's need for her to continue on with her treatment of Ligadone. And she's like, they're right about you. You're a monster. Oh my goodness, this is addicting and you knew it. And he's like, no, honey, honey. Anyway, she ends up deciding to stay at the Four Seasons for a while and then going to a rehab. Spoiler alert, she ends up getting clean. But that's in the future, which I'll get to because Verna tells tells people the future that would have happened. So 2 more Usher children down in Lenore. Tamerlane is very good at pretending to be a happy housewife. Well, not a housewife, but a happy woman. She's an entrepreneur. She wants to run her own business, her own thing, under the Usher name in Fortunato, but separate. Because this is getting away from the drugs and the toxicity. She wants to sell a life brand, essentially. She's married to a guy named William, called Bill T. He's a fitness YouTuber, essentially. It's kind of revealed that she purposefully sought him out for his branding potential and married him for his branding potential, because she knew she wanted what she wanted and what she was going to need for what she needed to do. So she picked him, and he was actually genuinely in love with her, but she's got a lot of hang-ups. She has this need to be perfect. She is envy. Oh, I didn't know if you knew Victorine was wrath. Because she's always been very angry and kind of bitter about being illegitimate because it made her feel less than, or that the others saw her as less than, as she wouldn't be considered full, I guess, or legitimate, I don't know. Well, Tamerlane is envy. Or rather, she wants people to envy her. But she is envious. She's wound up so tight, she doesn't even really trust her husband. Like, she doesn't really have sex with her husband. Their intimacy is faked. And by that I mean, she literally hires escorts that look like her, or look enough like her that a wig and certain clothes will make them a dead ringer for her, and lets them be with her husband. And that's her thing. She likes to watch. Because she doesn't want her husband near her. Why? She's just always been wired that way. Or at least, I'm assuming that because it's never been talked about her having any kind of trauma outside of her mother dying and the parental divorce and stuff like that. Well, her whole life has been leading up to this thing called Goldbug. She wants to make it a brand that's like a lifestyle. It's a whole thing, fitness, beauty, self-help guru sort of thing, with her husband as the face. Well, her husband as the face, because it's a family thing. But she starts getting upset and paranoid with her husband. She doesn't sleep, she doesn't really eat, ever since their last escort, who was Verna. Because ever since she welcomed Verna into her home, she's been seeing Verna in all of her husband's videos, which is against their rules because they are not supposed to see their escort person outside of what they do. And if they do, it's supposed to be like a quick dismissal thing. Because, it's one thing to see someone out in public and, you run into them. But for them to be on the close set, no, no, no. I mean, she keeps seeing Verna dress as her with her husband, which kind of ties into where her and her husband's names came from. So Will's name comes from William Wilson, which is about a guy who has a double, also named William Wilson, that he meets like in grade school, and he feels like a rivalry with this guy, or this more soft-spoken version of himself, that he ends up trying to kill him and ends up killing himself. It's like a real meta thing. And also Tamerlane is named for Tamerlane, which is a poem about a conqueror who misses what life could have been if he had been with his first love, and like let himself be more than just his ambition, which is all about what Tammy is going through. Well, Tammy ends up having a full-on breakdown the night of her launch, or the night that her brand is supposed to launch, because Verna keeps popping up. She just has like a whole breakdown about it. She goes home, which she shouldn't have done. Madeline tried to stop her. Arthur tried to stop her. And Madeline ends up seeing Verna, and Madeline tries to talk to Verna, but it doesn't go well. Verna slips through her hands with a smile going, you know. Well, Tammy is spiraling. Because see, that's what her envy is. She wants to be like her Aunt Madeline, her dad. She wants to have her own successful business that's not tied to Fortunato. She wants to be seen as the ambitious she wants to be it. But because she feels like she keeps getting looked over by Freddie and the others. And, well, here we are. Well, Verna haunts her in the house. And Verna tries, during the whole haunting scene, Verna's like, you need to calm down. You need to rest, Tammy. I promise this will be much better if you would just close your eyes and rest. Because you are exhausted. You are seeing things, and Tammy can't stand it. Tammy can't stand it. She's in full breakdown mode, so she's got the fire poker, and she is breaking down windows. She's getting herself cut up in the glass. And Verna is pleading with her, essentially. Stop. Just stop. Because see, Verna, despite the deal she made with Roderick and them, she does not want to bring a painful death to the children. Exactly. She wants them to just, they didn't have to go this way. It didn't have to go this way, essentially. But because of their choices leading up to their deaths, it does have to be that way. And she keeps pleading with Tammy just to chill out, lay down, rest. Instead, Tammy keeps breaking all the windows until eventually she's impaled by all of the glass. No more Tammy. Oh, and her thing, the gold bug, is based on another Edgar Allan Poe short story, also titled Gold Bug, which is a guy uses a special gold bug to try to find his fortune. Yeah. News of Tammy's death hits. She had a breakdown. That's how they go at it. And of course, the rest of the family spiraling. Madeline has not yet resigned herself, because this is about the time in the timeline when she tries to go to Roderick. She's like, just do it. And Roderick's like, yeah, no. Well, he does try, but then it doesn't work. And Roderick is slowly but surely being like, you know, maybe this is happening, but he can't stop it. Or he's resigned himself to not stopping it. Frederick is sloth because he is slow to act, but when he does, he is cruel. And I don't like him. And neither does Verna, which is, like all the others, Verna tries to, like, sympathize and tries to dissuade them from having to have, like, these painful deaths. But with Freddie, she's just like, like, that's just, that she's just like, no. So Freddie starts off, he is a loving, he seems to be a very loving husband and a devoted father. And he wants so badly to be just like his daddy, which is kind of where his name comes from. It's basically all around someone trying to be someone else, or be this perfect double of someone else. And he wants so badly to be like his daddy. He really does. He's just not respected like Roderick because he doesn't have the bite. He's demure. He's soft-spoken. He's stuttery, and he's used to being told what to do, not telling people what to do. So he's quick to listen to whatever Arthur Pym tells him. He's quick to listen to whatever his mom, whatever Madeline tells him to do, or whatever his dad tells him to do. He loves his wife. He loves his daughter, and they have like a very nice life. He does not ever take the elevator because he's a fear of elevators. He's like, quirky. He kind of makes me think of my friend's dad because of the way his face structure is. And overall, he seems like he would be, the good one. But then he finds out about Morella being at his brother's party, and he starts to spiral. First, he starts wondering, like, about, why was she there? She said she was going out with friends. We've never had issues of trust before. Why was she not wearing her wedding ring? Why was she there? Why was she there? Now, Morella is alive. She's bandaged head to toe. She's been burned off, And she spends a lot of the time in the hospital with brief visits. And he's just like, he's spiraling, trying to figure out what happened, where he went wrong. He spirals when Arthur gives him the burner phone. He's like, I don't know if this is your wife's or not, but it was found near her. And so he tries to get Lenore to secretly hack the phone because he's like, hey, you're a teenager, you know how to do this. And Lenore's like, this isn't like Mom's phone. Mom's phone always has her cakes, because Morella made cakes, like, as her background images. Like, this looks like someone else's phone, Daddy. He's like, yeah, well, I'm trying to figure out whose it is so I can give it back to them, Okay, well, it's not Mom's, I don't think. So at the hospital, he literally takes off some of her stuff to try to open up the phone. He can't open it up. Well, slowly at work, he's getting bombarded because, the EPA building thing, and his dad's blaming him for Perry's death still. And he's like, I'm gonna get to it, okay, Dad? And he eventually has Morella moved home against medical advice because he can take care of her. He'll have specialists come take care of her. Really, he's taking out his anger on her. Now, Verno kind of whispers to him in the hallway of the hospital as a nurse kind of thing, like, you don't want to do this. But he does. He takes her. He takes his wife home. Lenore is convinced. She's like okay with it at first because she's like, Dad can help. Dad's got all this money. We're gonna do this. Poor Lenore. She doesn't know what her dad's like yet. Well, this is about the time her dad starts getting on the cocaine. He starts spiraling more, and he starts like Morella gets to where she can kind of speak a little bit or blink a little bit. Blink, talk, and then actually speaking words some. That's when he starts spending more time alone with her. And he starts berating her. He starts drugging her because his family's come up with this paralytic agent that you mix up and put in, and it's supposed to be... It's kind of like an anesthetic, except you feel things. And he puts that with her, and he like beats on her a little. He goes, do you know why I fell for you? Because you smiled at me. And he goes, and we did all this, and you betrayed me like that. And he's like, no anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. He gets pliers and he pulls out some of her teeth because he doesn't want her pretty smile to deceive him anymore. And he goes, just so you know, I didn't really want to do that, but Dad always said that you can either be consistently cruel, and I don't want to be that, or you can make me cruel one time and make it understood. So that's what I did. Well, then Arthur and Madeline make the mistake of letting Freddie know that his dad is being kicked off. The board is voting, or is threatening to vote to kick off his father, or kick his father out of the company because of the spiraling he's doing. That Roderick is doing, because Roderick has been spiraling this whole time. And Frederick is like, I get a chance. So he goes behind, he immediately starts thinking behind Arthur and Madeline's back that he's going to take over the company. He's going to outmaneuver his dad and Madeline somehow. So he acts. And he starts calling up the Jersey boys that his dad wanted him to use to bust down the building in the first place. He's like, I am Frederick Usher. I am the heir to the Usher name, and I can do what I want. So he goes he plans on going down there because he wants to see the building destroyed. But during this time, Lenore has she's been questioning because she's not seen any doctors in and out of her mom's room. She's not heard anything doctory. And she gives her dad kind of the benefit of the doubt that he just really missed his wife and thinks he can take care of her. But so she comes up with this solution of like, hey, I researched these places that could help Mom. We could send her there, and it would be good for her. They can take care of her. And he's like, and he gets ill. He gets mean to his own daughter. He yells at her, and he acts like he's going to hit her, but he doesn't. And he goes, you're not going to defy me. We'll talk about this when I get home. And she looks at him and she goes, yeah, we will. And the moment he leaves, she goes to help her mom, but we'll get to her in a minute. Freddie leaves. And before the building blows up, he decides he wants to take a look around. One, to find his wife's wedding ring. And two, to desecrate the area because it's where his brother died and he hates his brother, even in death. Well, he takes a snort. Keep in mind, he's been snorting cocaine this whole time, right? He's got addicted. Well, when he was on the phone, he wasn't paying attention to what he was taking with him. And Morella tried to warn him with her eyes, but it didn't work. Instead of blowing cocaine, he snorted some of that narcoleptic agent. So he basically paralyzed himself here comes Verna. And she's in the guise of a construction worker. And she starts telling Freddy that, normally she would be like, it didn't have to end this way, blah, blah, blah. She goes, but for you, I decided it was going to end this way. She goes, because what you did was despicable. You could have just helped your wife. You could have, been different from your family, but no, you had to go above and beyond to be cruel. Because, at least with your siblings, they did not, they didn't get physically involved in it or whatever. It was, implied, blah, blah, blah. You, on the other hand. And he's, trying to solve, but it's not going to work. And she goes, pathetic. And she, basically reads Freddy down, drags him down about trying to be like his father and blah, blah, blah. He's cruel. And she goes, you know what made it worse? The fact that you used pliers. Because in the lifetime you could have had, you were a dentist. A really good dentist. So this is like a slap in the face. So, yeah. You ever heard of the pendulum? The pit and the pendulum? That's how Freddy dies. It's a very inaccurate story based around the Spanish Inquisition, where a prisoner is trapped in a pit and a pendulum is swinging down and going to kill him. He escapes. Freddy does not. And Verna spends the entire time up until his death taunting him. Then he's cut in half. And the building falls on him. But the people knew he was in the building. Yeah, well, Verna's really good at imitating people. Especially when they can't see her. After all, she's an entity. She can do whatever she wants. Well, news gets around about Freddy's death. And Lenore ends up staying with her grandfather. But she is still angry at her father. When the funerals happen, and during the funerals, that's when Roderick realizes that his time's coming. He runs into the ghost of Annabelle, who flat out tells him, what did you do to my babies? It's because of you and your greed that they turned out this way. You stunted their hearts so they didn't grow up with love. I used to think you were like the richest man, but it turns out you're poorer than poor, meaning morality speaking. Then there's Lenore. She starts off being kind of naive to her family because they keep her in the dark because she's young. She's 15, 16, I think. But she slowly starts coming to understand that her family is these horrible people that the government thinks that they are, that other people think that they are responsible for this crisis. They are responsible for all of these deaths, that they have done these horrible things. And then she sees firsthand that her father is abusive to her mother. So after that final confrontation, when her dad leaves, she doesn't even wait for the door to close good. She runs to her where her mom's being held, breaks down the door, and sees the state her mom is in and calls the police. The police come by and Arthur shows up too, and Arthur is like, I had them toss out what you told them because, they shouldn't talk to you without me present, blah, blah, blah. Here's what you're going to say. And she goes, no. He goes, your father is dead. There's no need to desecrate the name of a dead. And she goes, back off, you ghoul. I don't give a damn about the Usher family name. Not when that monster abused my mother. So you can take your spin and shove it. So then she goes up to the police, gives them a brand new statement, which is basically the truth, the statement she gave them previously. And she goes to stay with her grandfather. poor Lenore. She tried to help. She tried to help her Aunt Madeline with her AI project. Because she was always so fascinated by computers. Just like her Aunt Madeline. The others considered her kind of young and naive. But she was young. She was naive. She was a kid. Verna comes to her. Has her sit beside her, and she's like, I don't really take pleasure in this part of my job. But it's something that has to be done. Because your family doesn't seem to realize what the term bloodline means. She goes, do you want me to tell you a story about your mother? Because of your actions tonight. Lenore, says, yeah. Morella ends up living. It takes hundreds of skin grafts and years and hours and years of therapy. But she gets through it. And from her part of the dissolved Fortunato company, she starts a foundation in Lenore's name that ends up helping millions and millions of people. Lenore's like, but I won't see it. And she goes, no. You won't see it. Lenore, will you close your eyes? So Lenore closes her eyes. And Verna kisses her cheek, touches her. Just a little touch. Lenore is gone. And that's what really spirals Roderick. Roderick shows up. He sees her dead. And he breaks down. So he goes to his office one last time at the building. And Verna shows up. And she tells him, you might as well get Madeline and Augie because it ends tonight. And he goes, I know. She goes, look at those raindrops. Every one of those raindrops represents a person that you took from this world. He goes, but she goes, no. I let you and your sister run amok because I wanted to see what you would do without the consequences. She goes, now some people do great things, but you and your sister, oof, your body count. And the raindrops literally do turn to bodies, falling. And she goes, you wanted an empire, a legacy that would outlive you. She goes, but this is your legacy. This pile of bodies and corpses. Death is you. And of course, he's selling all this dog. He's just like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. But what about Arthur? Okay, so we find out what happened to Morella. Morella, she founds the Lenore Foundation. Juno gives up Fortunato and all the money associated with it to help with rehabilitation and detox programs. She's trying to fix what her husband and his family broke as well. Arthur meets and talks with Verna because he knows Verna, or what Verna is. Or he realizes when he originally shows up, he's going to try to kill her for Madeline, but it doesn't work out. Because you can't kill death. But she plays along for a minute, and she's like, oh, that was so much fun. I don't get to do that often. And he's just like, she's like, yeah. He's like, fair enough. She's like, most people would be more surprised. And she goes, but you've seen me before. And she talks about, Arthur's backstory, which is the same, or very similar to, Arthur Pym, the stories of Arthur Pym, which is, the only, I think, one of the few full-length novels that Edgar Allan Poe wrote. Which is basically this guy who goes on a trans-global, around the world expedition sort of thing. And he sees things that he can't quite explain. One of them was he saw death. And she stared back at him. And she offers him a deal. No prison. But he'd owe her something. And he's like, no. I will be leveraged and beholden to no one. She goes, thank you. You're one of the few people who's not taken one of my deals. So she's grateful for that. So at the end of this, Camille's assistants or former assistants turn in all of her files that she had on people, and since most of the people she had files on are dead, but Arthur gets convicted of all of the charges. He essentially becomes the Fortunato fall guy, or the only Fortunato person that they can charge, because with most of the people in power dead, Augie can't really do anything else. So, which Augie ends up retiring. After all of this, he's one of the few people who got to behold the reckoning of Verna. He retires. He wants to spend more time with his husband and his children and grandchildren, and then he goes to the graves of the Usher family. And basically, when he tells Roderick, I'm still here, you're not. And it's like a long thing, and he does kind of wish them luck. Well, when he leaves, Verna shows up, places her trophies on each of the tombstones. And she's like, and she recites a poem to them about death. And that is the fall of the House of Usher. And I loved it. Like, I know it was a lot. It was so pretty. I loved the visuals. I loved, like, this. Now, the poetry language can get a little much sometimes because they like to recite, especially Annabelle Lee. They like to, or like the poem of Annabelle Lee. But it was just so beautiful. And it was really telling as well. Like, all of this because of a deal one person made. It's like it talks about, it's about like the domino effect. One person's choice affects all these other choices. It could also be considered, I guess, partially the butterfly effect. What if they made these choices? Although the different choices isn't really seen upon or expounded upon as much, other than Verna's talks to the people of what could have been. So I guess more domino effect. And then it's also about like fueling like greed over greed and excess over like what you can handle. It was beautiful. Anyway, I hope you all watch it. I know I kind of spoiled a lot, or if y'all did watch it already, it was beautiful. I liked it. I loved it, really. I'm probably going to be talking about this for a while, too. I'm also going to be talking about a couple of other things. I'm going to try to watch the other Mike Flanagan series as well, because he's brilliant. Or in my opinion. I might be wrong. Or, well, that's my opinion. You can't be wrong about your own opinion. Other people can think you're wrong, but that's beside the point. Anyway, I think he's brilliant. This was the fall of the House of Usher. A sort of ramble. And what a ramble it was. Thank you for listening if you listened. If you didn't listen, that's fine too. But, this is I'm Courtney McCullough from Ageless Writer Studios, and I'm signing off. So, thank you.